Hello again, precious friends. Thanks for joining me, Aunt Patty, once again in the Carnivore Hippie's kitchen. This video, we are going to finish our carnivore tacos. Guarantee you no corn, no grain. The recipe is completely customizable to have, if you want, no plant materials at all. If you'd rather, there are some spices. There's a tiny bit of tomato if you choose to use tomato, but you can just leave the tomato-based ingredients out altogether if that's what you choose to do, and the recipe will still be delicious. So of course we're going to start with our hardware. There's a little more hardware in this recipe than we usually have because it's a several stage process. And please keep in mind that we've already made our taco shells in the last video, so we won't need hardware for that. But first, to start with, we're going to begin by making our meat filling, which is going to be a typical ordinary ground meat filling. So we're going to need a skillet for that. And then as we go on, we're going to need an extra bowl to put our cooked meat in. If you're doing it on your stove, like I was last time, you could just leave the seasoned taco filling in the pan, but that's not going to work with the setup we have today. And then we're going to need another skillet, good sized skillet, for actually frying the tacos. We're going to need a pair of tongs. You could do it with 2 forks, but I highly recommend a pair of tongs without the silicone endings. I just find that the silicone ends make it difficult to manipulate the tacos, but like I always say, you do you. And my ubiquitous silicone spoonula scraper thingy. So we're going to move this skillet out of the way. Oh yes, and one more thing, a draining rig, which is just several layers of paper towels over a baker's rack. Okay, excuse me, got an issue with my rig here. Okay, so first thing, or actually second thing we're going to do is talk about our ingredients for our seasoned ground beef filling. Okay, of course we're going to have a pound of ground beef or 500 grams, and for seasonings we have well, first of all, a little more than half a teaspoon of salt. I think about 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt, just because I usually use half a teaspoon of salt per pound of meat, because that's usually what I like. But for this recipe, I like it a tad bit saltier. So there's maybe between an eighth and 1/4 of a teaspoon above a half a teaspoon here. Here we have a teaspoon of cumin powder, a big pinch, maybe between an eighth and 1/4 of a teaspoon of dried oregano, the 2 tablespoons, which is the juice of 2 limes plus some of the lime zest, a 1/4 of a teaspoon of garlic powder, a teaspoon of onion powder, a heaping teaspoon of smoked paprika, and about 1/4 of a teaspoon of coriander powder, which is the seed of the cilantro plant. I just like it. And in here we have 2 tablespoons of tomato paste. Everything on this plate is seasoning, and it is absolutely optional. If there's something on here you don't like, you can leave it out. Honestly. So you can make this exactly the way you want it. Just customize it to your taste. Now, on top of that, we are also going to need half a cup of water. And again, this is optional. This is 2 tablespoons of vodka. Actually, it's closer to a quarter cup, so it's probably about 3 tablespoons of vodka. I like to put a little vodka in anything that I put tomatoes in, just because there's something about vodka and tomatoes that just really interacts really, really well. And also the vodka does a lot to bloom the flavors of the spices. Again, completely optional, and it will evaporate to the point where there will be just a negligible amount of alcohol in here. And it really doesn't add anything in terms of carbohydrates. Okay, and half a cup of water. All right. So I'm going to turn on Mr. Cooktop here. And we're going to put him on medium-high heat, which is going to be about 380 degrees. While he's heating up, we're going to say a little bit about the tacos. The tacos we're going to be making are tacos that are inspired by tacos that I grew up eating that my mom used to cook. My mom was not a great cook. She didn't enjoy cooking, but she had a very small repertoire of very successful recipes, and a particular form of tacos was among them. It's the sort of tacos where you take a corn tortilla, you lay it down in a pan that's got a shallow layer of oil in it, and put a spoonful of seasoned meat and a spoonful of cheese on one side of the taco of the tortilla, fold it over, and then continue to fry both sides of the taco in the oil until it is as crispy as you desire. I have been told by some people that I have no reason to doubt that this is a very, very regional sort of taco that is only served and only common in very, very specific parts of Mexico. And I've also been told by people that this is a completely whitewashed version of a taco that absolutely is inauthentic and that Mexicans don't eat at all. I don't know which is the truth. All I know is this is the taco that I grew up loving as a kid. This is the taco that I missed when I decided to stop eating corn. And so this is the taco that I have decided to, I won't say recreate, let me say estimate to the point where I won't need to worry about craving corn tortilla tacos anymore. So that was my goal here. Anyway, so our pan is just about hot enough for the ground meat to start. And I'm going to move this draining rig out of the way for the time being because we won't need it for a little bit. Okay, so as you can see, I have my ground beef here. I have pre-crumbled it as I always do. I can't say it often enough. A lot of people don't like ground beef, and I think the reason they don't like it is because they don't know how to treat it. And I will keep saying it. I don't think it can be said too frequently. If you're making ground beef crumbles and you just throw a solid chunk of ground beef into a pan and start wailing on it with a spoon, what you're going to get is tough little dried out crumbles of meat, because there is no way they will be able to withstand that and hold on to any of their juice. If you crumble up the ground beef first, you will get a much better product. There we go. Let us move our seasoning into and the other thing that you want to do when you're making crumbled ground beef crumbles is spread them out into the pan. Since you've got them pre-crumbled, it should be easy. I'm yelling to get over the sound of the sizzle. And once you got it spread out, leave it alone. Don't mash it and beat on it and stir it too much. I have known several people in my life who have said they didn't like ground beef. And then I found out the way they were abusing their poor ground beef, and I taught them better, and their issues with ground beef resolved, as I hope yours will. I'm going to turn the heat up some on this because I'm not so sure it's going to stay hot. You want this hot enough so that as the moisture comes out of the ground beef along with the fat, the moisture evaporates pretty much as quickly as it seeps out of the meat. That way the temperature of the pan doesn't go down, and you have some decent caramelization on the bottom. And we don't need the whole pan to be caramelized. We just need the bottom layer to be caramelized. That's going to be plenty of flavor. I almost forgot, we are going to need a vessel to scoop out some of the excess fat. This is 80/20 ground beef, and it is a little bit greasier than I like for this dish, because we are going to be adding some fat back into it as we fry the tacos. There's no way around that, so we are going to take some of the grease out just for the sake of neatness. Not that I don't think you can eat the grease or that I don't think you should eat the grease. You absolutely can. But the red grease dribble running down your arm, I find unpleasant. If that's what you want to do, go ahead, but that's not me. So you'll notice we haven't stirred this at all. And I'm not really going to, because we don't need it to cook all the way through at this point. We're going to cook it some more with the seasoning. All I want is to get, see, some caramelization on the bottom. That's what I'm looking for. That's all I need. I'm going to turn this off. And I'm going to remove what fat has accumulated. There will be more later on, but that'll be okay. We just want to take out what we've got here. And like I said, it's not that I have a problem with the fat. I'm not telling you you shouldn't eat it. I'm just telling you the end result of your tacos are going to be much neater and more pleasant to eat. And you can use this fat to do whatever you want with. You can use it for cooking later. You can eat it by the spoonful if you want to. It's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with it. So here we are. Now we're going to turn our cooktop back on. Here we go. We're going to wait for it to get sizzling again. And we salt, cumin, oregano, coriander, smoked paprika, onion powder, garlic powder, now we are going to just get these spices started. They are going to, the heat and the fat that's already in here is just going to start opening them up. It's called bloom. And it really helps the spices, the seasonings meld and blend together. And being in contact with the hot oil, anybody who's cooked Indian food knows that many Indian recipes, they bloom their spices and fry their spices in a little hot oil first. There's actually a lot of similarity between Mexican food and Indian food, which I'll go into sometime. It's quite fascinating. Okay, there we go. Now, tomato paste, about 2 tablespoons. And we're actually frying the tomato paste a little bit. That gives it a very, very distinctive flavor that I really, really like. Is it authentic? I don't know. There are some Mexican recipes where they fry tomato sauce, but I don't know. All I can tell you is I like it. Now that the tomato paste has been fried just a little bit, there starts to be a coating of tomato and spices on the bottom of the pan. That's good. That's going to give us a very distinctive flavor. Now, here's where the water comes in. Because if you leave that coating on the bottom of the pan too long, that is going to burn. And we don't want it to burn. We just want it to be toasty. Now that we have the water in, vodka, and we're going to turn the heat down. I've turned this cooktop down to low because this is going to simmer until almost all the liquid is out of it. And you'll see all of that fond on the bottom of the pan has dissolved up into the water. That's where we want it. We don't want it stuck to the pan. We want it in the sauce. We want it back up and stuck to our meat. Now, at this point, it's pretty safe because the meat's pretty well cooked. It's safe to start, breaking up any of the bigger pieces. There we go. We're going to just let that simmer for a minute or two while I clear up my mess. And we're going to start preparing for assembling the tacos. I moved my draining rig over here. Transfer my other skillet. This just takes a few minutes. This just takes as long as it takes. We're just going to continue to simmer this until the liquid is pretty much gone. The liquid's reduced by about half, and now we're going to put in our 2 tablespoons of lime juice with the lime zest. Now, if you don't want to bother with the lime zest, that's fine. When I juice limes, I always take zest off of them and put some of the zest in. Oh my goodness, I wish you could smell the change in the scent in here. That lime juice has just added something. I mean, it smelled good before, but at this point it just smells wildly delicious. It's making my mouth water. Anyway, back to the lime zest. Whenever I use lime juice, I always take my microplane grater and grate at least a little bit of the lime zest into what I'm using. Because at a certain point, it's difficult to tell the difference between lime and lemon juice. But if you put a little bit of the zest in whatever you're doing with lime or lemon, it becomes very apparent which it is. And I love limes, so I want it to taste like limes. And again, this is for flavoring. If you want to leave that out, you go ahead and leave it out. But there's something about the acidity of the lime and the, I guess I would call it the floral pungency of the lime zest that just is so delicious with this beef. And putting lime on beef is very, very traditional in Mexican cooking. In fact, I have eaten at a Mexican restaurant, and they did a recipe of grilled beef steak, and the only thing they seasoned it with was salt and lime juice. And I cannot tell you how spectacularly delicious it was. I think they called it bisteca al carbone, and it was grilled over carbon or a charcoal fire, and it had been seasoned only with salt and lime juice. And oh my goodness, it was so good. So there's something about lime and beef that I think is just kind of magical, frankly. Now this is actually, it's dry enough if you want it to be. It's still pretty juicy. I like it a little bit drier. Where are we at on the video here? Yeah, we're already at 21 minutes and we still have to fry these dang tacos. So I don't want this to get too long. So we're going to end this, and I'm just going to scrape this out at this point into our bowl. You can't see what we're doing, but that's okay. Yes, Mr. Cooktop, I understand you don't like to be without a vessel on your surface. So there is our ground beef. Now, without further ado, we are going to start with our fresh skillet, and we are going to put a very generous amount of fat in here. This is actually a mixture of bacon grease and tallow. Didn't do it on purpose. I accidentally mistook a pan full of tallow for bacon fat. I didn't taste it before I put it in here. Oh, you turned yourself off. Why did you do that? Well, we're going to turn you right back on again. There we go. But it really doesn't matter, like I said. So this is a mixture of bacon fat and tallow. And we're going to use probably around 1/4 cup. You could also use this that you got out of the ground beef, although that has a lot of dripping in it, so we'll probably spit a lot. The stuff I have over there has all the dripping out of it, settled out of it, so it's not going to spit. So this is going to get nice and hot. And now we have our lovely taco shells that we made. And I will show you how I like to do it. I like to take one and hold it folded like this to kind of get it started. and hold it like this in the pan for just a minute, for just, I don't know, a minute or so, and let it get started. Otherwise, what happens is the butt end or the back end of the taco shell just never really gets any crispiness on it. And if you don't want to bother with this step, yeah, don't. You don't have to. So now that I've done that, we're going to put a little bit of meat down on our taco shell. Make sure it's only on one side. And we're going to put a pinch of cheese inside. Where's my tongs? There we go. And we're going to just hold that down for a sec until you figure out it's going to stay. And then you can push that one off to the side and you can do another one. I think we'll probably get 3 of them in here. I'm going to lower the heat a little bit just for safety. This is getting kind of hot. You want this to be really hot, but not so hot that it is difficult to work with. Yeah, and this pan is smoking pretty good. Hold on. I gotta vent this, or else we're gonna have another interruption like we had the other day. Couple of videos back, we had our smoke alarm go off. Ha! In the middle of a video. That was exciting. More meat. More cheese. And squish it over. Now that that one's done, this one is going to be done. Ooh, that's pretty. A little over, but that's okay. And usually if you're doing 3 at a time in a big skillet like this, by the time this one's ready to, or the time this one's filled, this one's ready to turn. And by the time this one is filled, this one will be ready to turn, and this one will be ready to come out. It's usually how it works. And then you just end up, and you just rotate, and you can cook 3 at a time. Okay. Careful not to overfill your tacos. It's very tempting. But it's better to put a little bit less than you think than more. It really is easier. There we go. Now that one's filled. This one's ready to flip. And this one is ready to take out. Ow! You know what? I could use the tongs for the purpose which I designated them. That would be helpful. Put that over there. We're going to put that over there. And we're going to get number 4. I've got the heat at 340 at this point. After this, I think I'll, make one more. And then we will dress them and taste them. Get in there. Okay, that one's done, which means this one is ready to come out. Yeah, you're going to lose a little meat here and there. That's just the way it works. This one's ready to turn. And this one's ready to slide over. One last one, and then we will make a plate. Oh, look you. That's not right. You have to stay closed. Okay. Sometimes you have to squeeze on a little bit until the cheese melts a little bit and glues it shut. Now you see I've got a pound of meat will make enough meat for, 12 or 15 tacos of this size. So you could just put the extra meat, if you don't use it all, in the refrigerator and it keeps for like 2 weeks. Or you can put it in the freezer and freeze it for later. It works good. Okay, now that one's done. That means this one's ready to come out. And this one is ready to flip. And while we're waiting for those to finish, we will get our taco dressings on set. I lowered the heat a little bit so that they're cooking a little bit slower. That's the last one. While we wait for that one to finish its glory, look what we got here. We've got our tacos. We've got a nice clean plate. And we've got one crispy taco, two crispy tacos. They are not as crispy, to be fair, as corn tortillas would be, but they're certainly have a very pleasant texture in my mind. Let's turn this off. There, now our taco dressings. My hubby likes his tacos dressed with just regular old American style taco cheese that you can buy at your local grocery store. But I like mine with queso fresco, which is what I have here. So we are going to open our taco. And again, this is a tomato product. Very traditional, but this is just a regular old mild salsa fresca that you can make yourself or buy at the grocery store. A heap and helping of queso fresco. And I have here a couple of tablespoons of sour cream in a Ziploc sandwich bag with whoops, the corner cut off, which makes it very handy, as you can see. Now we will dress our second taco. With a spoonful of salsa fresca, as spicy as you like, or no salsa at all if you're not doing tomatoes or if you're not doing capsicums. Queso fresco, or whatever kind of cheese you like, and sour cream. Or you could get yourself some real Mexican style crema and use that. And there we are. There we are. We have as close as so it makes no difference to a genuine Taco Tuesday, even though it's Wednesday and this won't post till Thursday. But anyhow, let's take a bite. I could do with a little lettuce on this just because I like the cool crispiness of the iceberg lettuce, but it's not necessary. As I've said before, these don't taste like corn tortillas. I don't want to fool you into thinking that they do, but they have a very nice texture. The edges are a little crispy, and with all the other flavors, to me, as far as I'm concerned, it really doesn't matter that they don't taste like corn tortillas, because this is as close enough to a taco as, like I say, that it makes no difference to me. Oops. When I was a kid, we called that taco poops. Anyway, I'm going to eat that. I hope you try this. I know it is a lot of work. I get it. And one of the reasons I do these things is because I like to cook. I like to be creative in the kitchen. I like to put in the effort and see the outcomes. I like to do the experiments. That's my thing. It's always been kind of my gig. So, and I understand a lot of people, this is not what they're going to want to spend their time doing. But if you're interested in seeing exactly how creative carnivore food can be, exactly the range, how broad real food can get, I hope you'll join me again, because I have some more ideas, and I've been experimenting with fathead dough, and there's been some interesting developments on that front. I can't tell you exactly when they'll happen, but it is coming. So for now, there will be more carnivore noodle experiments in the future, but for right now, we're going to move on. And all I have left to say is I love you all. I hope you try this. If you do, please let me know how it turns out. Please give my carnivore noodles a try, or my carnivore noodles inspired by Indigo Nilly, and let me know how you like them and how they worked out for you. I would love to hear. For now, I wish you peace, love, and meat, and we will talk again soon. Bye-bye.